Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
What's up, Night fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here. Recording this on a Wednesday night, January 25th, 2017. And, wow, already a busy weekend for UCF basketball because we got a lot on tap. We have a lot of basketball to talk about. We'll be catching up with tennis. We'll be catching up even with a little volleyball and even some softball news, Eric Lopez.
That's right. It's almost that time of year.
And we're already making the countdown. You know, we have baseball's coming up around the corner,
yep.
And lots to talk about coming up. Is we're getting ready to hit that spring sports equinox, right? Like when in the month of February, when baseball and softball and the other spring sports kind of cross over the calendar with basketball, and it's going to get real busy here in a hurry. And you can tell some of the folks that we know over at UCF are like, oh God, it's getting real hard right now because it's so busy over there. But
absolutely.
But there is a lot of news that to talk about, and we're going to talk about it here tonight. Reminder, you can follow us on Twitter, UCF_Banneret. Go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. And also, you can follow us on Twitter individually. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo. We're also on Facebook as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're recording this Wednesday night, January 25th, and we have some men's basketball to talk about. The Knights at home against SMU, and it's a pretty good SMU team. And in what was a physical game, UCF falls by 5 in this ball game to the Mustangs, 65-60. It's only the Knights, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, it's the Knights, I think, second home loss on the year. Yeah, second home loss on the year. And now they've lost 2 in a row because they lost at Memphis on Sunday in another tight game, another game decided by 5 points. So they've dropped 2 close games, one on the road, one at home. And what I thought was kind of weird about this game was how physical it was between these two teams, especially in the second half. They really did let him play. Thought there were a couple times when some UCF players around the basket, and sometimes, well, actually, to be honest with you, not around the basket, encountered some heavy contact. No calls were made. That was quite frustrating for the crowd that was there, certainly. But for the Knights, it was B.J. Taylor who led the way, 8 of 18 from the floor, 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Taco Fall had a pretty good game, 5 of 7 from the field, 10 points, 12 rebounds, 4 of them offensive. But UCF did not shoot well in this game, 42%. Actually ended up out-shooting SMU, but it was the Mustangs who got the advantage in this game, and they led by 9 at the half, and UCF tried to chip away in the second, but just wasn't enough. And points off turnovers, SMU 13-6. Based on this performance, Eric, I don't know. It looked like there were a couple of dents in the armor for UCF here. What did you see from this game?
Similar than the Memphis game came down to a possession here, possession there. It's tough. We talked about this. This is the tough part of the stretch here for UCF
These are the
basketball.
dog days of the college basketball season right here, from late January into February, right?
Absolutely. And the lack of depth we talked about, you're going to have nights where you don't shoot the ball particularly well. SMU, by the way, they're right now, I would say they're the second best team in the conference. So they're going to go to the NCAA tournament. They're that good. So,
by the way, speaking of a team that doesn't have any depth, SMU played 7 players in their rotation. Five of them were on the floor for at least 36 minutes.
But they're a little better players. And it was a back and forth game. Just give SMU credit. I mean, they're a really good basketball team, and Memphis is a good team with Tubby Smith. I mean, this is the rough stretch for the basketball team, and this was the concern when I pinpoint the schedule. SMU at Memphis last weekend. Now they got to go to Tulsa and that's not trust me, I've done that trip twice with softball. Not the easiest of trips because it is Tulsa is not an easy place to get to. And then, they got to go to Houston, and then they host Memphis. So it's tough games from here on out. And we haven't even brought up at Cincinnati on February 8th. So this is where the adversity will hit and where your flaws get exposed a little bit. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where the teams they just played the last two games have just been slightly better. And it's just the way the game goes. And when everybody's not clicking, that's where UCF has issues. And while Taylor was good and Taka was good, the other guys struggled. And it's tough. I think the encouragement, it's not like they got blown out. There's nothing to be ashamed about it. I mean, they were good games. They had opportunities. They just come up short. And I'm still positive about the season. For those that were trying to bring up the 4-letter word in March, You
mean like me?
Yeah, you. Yeah. Glad you called yourself out. I warned you not to get caught up in that stuff. It's too early. I still think this team has a shot at postseason basketball. That's the term I've used. And when I've used that, I really focus more on the CBI or the NIT. But this stretch will tell you where this season goes. But tough effort. But look, give credit to SMU. They made the plays when it mattered, and now you just got to move on and try to steal it. It doesn't get easier going to Tulsa.
Through 20 overall games, 8 in the conference, UCF right now is 14-6 overall, 5-3 in the American. They are tied for 4th with Memphis. Memphis has the game in hand right now.
Yep.
So they're behind Cincinnati, who's 17-2, 7-0. SMU, who's now 18-4, 8-1. Tulsa, who's 11-8 but 5-2, and Memphis, who's 15-6, 5-3. So let me ask you this: is this where you thought? If I told you this is where UCF would be right now, 14-6, 5-3 in the league, tied for 4th. If I told you that at the start of the season, would you be happy, or would you think that this is right where they would be?
I'd be thrilled. I'd be like, if we throw a parade. I'm serious. I did not imagine they'd be at this point here. I thought they might lose an extra game or two non-conference. If you want to talk about specifically just conference, I never thought they would blow out Temple at home.
Yeah, that was a
Temple team, by the way, that I know they've struggled since that game, but has beaten West Virginia and beaten Florida State this year. So that was a big win. You win at home against a Houston team that blew you out by 27 last year in the same court with Calvin Sampson. I wouldn't have imagined they would have necessarily won that game. So, no, I did not think they would be in a position where we're even talking about postseason basketball, because I've had concerns about the lack of depth on this team. And, I didn't expect Matt Williams to have the year that he's having and things like that. So, no, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. And I'm thrilled where they're at. They're playing good games. They're playing hard. And that's the approach I would take moving forward. To me, if you break down the schedule here, all right, you said they're 5-3, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they lose at Tulsa, because let's be honest. I mean, that's not an easy place to play. I could see them. I could see them losing a few here. You got Memphis at home. You had Houston. Maybe you split that. I think they're going to lose at Cincinnati. Interesting to see what happens when they host UConn. But then they host Tulsa. They're at ECU, at Temple, host Cincinnati, at USF. That's a tough stretch. If this team
but
can
those
get
easy games are on the road. That's what scares me.
Right. So if they can get to 8, I mean, right now they're 5-3. All right, they're 5-3, and they're at 14 wins. If I can get to 8 wins, all right, to get to 8, that would get them around 17. You're right. They're going to have to steal a game here and there in the road. But if they can get 8 wins, remember, this team was picked 8th in the preseason in the conference.
That's right. Now they got only 4 home games left in the schedule, and I'm going through the schedule right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 road games left. So if they want to get to 20 wins overall on the season, which I think would be a hell of an achievement, they're going to have to not just hold serve at home. They're going to have to take a pair on the road, and that's going to be pretty tough, especially when you consider you got like we talked about already. Your remaining home games right now are Memphis, who's right with you in the standings, UConn, who has picked it back up after that bad start, and they're slowly but surely crawling back up the standings at 4-4 in the league. You mentioned Tulsa; they're right now 5-2 in the league, in third, and Cincinnati, who's first place in the league. So I mean, those 4 tough home games, and I think you're right. If you told me right now we would be 14-6, 5-3, I'd be like, wow, we really figured it out pretty quick with Johnny Dawkins. I think what's encouraging, though, is the fact that he's gotten the young guys, obviously, to buy in, which we talked about, the B.J. Taylor and Taco Fall and all those guys. The veteran guys have shown the way. Matt Williams, obviously, at the top. But I keep being encouraged by this defense. They're still at the top of the league and near the top of the country in field goal percentage defense. Same thing with scoring defense, averaging only 59.5 a game, although SMU, by the way, tied with the Knights right now in that category at 59, average, giving up 59.5 a game. And we talked about the 3-point percentage defense, rebounding offense has been great for UCF. Boy, do they rebound the hell out of the ball. Plus 12 in rebounding margin on average this season, and that tells you, and to me that's credit to Taco Fall, because he has really hit the boards this year, and that's what he's among the top. He keeps switching back and forth, I think, with a guy from New Jersey Institute of Technology, but the Highlanders. But he's right up there, top 2 or 3 in the NCAA in rebounds, and that's a huge credit to him, despite the fact that, like we talked with Taylor Young last week, he's not been getting a lot of blocked shots, because UCF right now is 8th in the league in team blocks, 3.8 a game, and what that tells me is people are just staying out of the lane on him, right? So, right. But in that respect, his presence there is obvious. Now, he's still 3rd in the conference with block shots per game at 2.5, but he's not blocking 4 shots a game,
right.
which you would think a 7'6" guy, he'd be blocking 3-4 shots a game, but that's because teams just stay out of the paint. They know, like, well, that's pointless, so they have to make shots. And SMU did a very good job of making shots. And also to Taco's credit, he has stayed out of foul trouble. But I want to see what happens when the offense catches up to the defense. I think we haven't seen that right now, and I think that offensively it's still going to be a little bit of a struggle because, like you said, we're in the dog days of the basketball season. It's getting you're going to start to see the fatigue creep in this next stretch of this next 3-4 games. And even though we have that pattern of that Wednesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Sunday, or Thursday, Sunday, it's starting to get tough. And, guys are not injured, but we know that guys are hurt, right? You just don't see them show up on an injury report, or they're out there and they're playing, but you know that they're hurt. I mean, B.J. Taylor's been fighting injuries all season. So now is where you got to kind of dig deep, and I think that they have, this schedule's not going to do them any favors.
But again, if I would have told anybody in October this team has a chance to go 8-10, 9-9 in the conference, and win 18 games, 17, 18 games,
yeah,
I would not have believed it. I thought they were a 500 team. I thought this was a throwaway year, and if they can get to 8-10, 9-9 in the conference, which would put them at around 18 wins. I think they're a postseason basketball team, an NIT team or a CBI team. And we're not even, and we're not even including a conference tournament that maybe they win a game or two. Who knows? I think that would be incredible when you consider what the expectations were going into the season. When you're like, well, they got 5-6 scholarship players. You've got injuries. You had to deal with an injury to B.J. Taylor, who missed a stretch period of time. You had an injury to A.J. Davis. And yet here they are. And that's the thing that I'm excited. I feel like we're ahead of schedule. I really did, Jeff. I'll be honest. I thought this was just going to be a throwaway year. Like, I remember when we were discussing stuff in the fall about, what are we going to do in the spring? I'm like, what are we going to talk about in January, February? Yeah. But this team, I'm like, what are we going to do? We're going to be breaking down a lot of losses, but that's not been the case. And remember, this is a young team. This nucleus basically returns next year with the additions of guys that Johnny is bringing in that are sitting out currently. And that's the exciting thing to me. I can tell you I've had the privilege of talking to him on the radio. I actually had a chance to, sit through a practice on Tuesday because I was getting prepared for a women's basketball broadcast. And I'm just so impressed with him and the way he communicates with the players. And he's just a great presence. And so I think regardless of what happens here, I don't want people to just, oh my God, the sky is falling. What has happened?
Kind of like what happened with football this year, right?
Yeah, but that's it's apples and oranges. It's just to me, this has been really an enjoyable basketball team to watch. Probably more enjoyable, really, than the last few years, where right around this, they were not a very good defensive team, and they would just get blown out, and you question whether the team showed up on a nightly basis and all that other stuff.
That was hard to watch. That was hard to watch last year.
It has been. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, let's be honest here, Jeff. In this basketball program, you were there during the Kirk era, from ASUN.
The best of the Kirk era, the back-to-back championships.
Correct. And then you were there. You saw them through. You stepped out, but then they went to Conference USA. You got back right as he was in Conference USA, a couple years into Conference USA when you were working at UCF, and then the arena had just gotten built. And there was a lot of excitement about the basketball program. They were drawing big crowds. They were drawing good crowds. And then once Kirk got let go, Donnie Jones came in. And then there was that first year of Donnie Jones with Marcus Jordan and Keith Clanton and those guys that were Kirk's recruits. And they had a lot of success, and they were drawing 8,000, 9,000 people. And that, people were interested in the basketball program. They were ranked top 25, if you remember that year, when they beat Florida. And they beat all that.
Florida in the first, I think that was the first college basketball game at the new arena, too.
At the Amway Center, correct. I was there for that. So, and at that time, it was a very exciting time. They fell apart a little bit in the conference, but they still made postseason. They made a CBI and NIT. And then the sanctions all happened. Okay, and all the sanctions happen, and with the whole saga, which we're not going to document again. I mean, it's been well documented what happened and all that stuff. And Donnie was right in the middle of all that. And the basketball team went on sanctions. Obviously, the focus was on the football side, but basketball got hit hard. In fact, there was that one year, I think it was Keith Clanton's senior year, where they weren't even eligible for any postseason.
Right.
And to me, that was the point. I felt, and I remember this because they had a pretty good team in Keith Clanton's senior year, but they were playing for nothing, basically pride. They were playing for pride. And I remember it's like, man, this is Donnie doing a good job, and I would treat, and there would be a lot of negativity back at me. And I think that's at that time frame where Donnie lost a lot of support from the UCF fans. And I think a lot of UCF fans turned their back on the basketball program at that point for a variety of reasons. They blamed Donnie for the sanctions, or they blamed the basketball program for the sanctions that affected football, and yada, yada, yada. And we've seen the results the last couple of years. They haven't drawn and stuff. So I feel like, and I'll never forget, we had Taylor Young on last week. And you remember the last thing he said before he signed off in our interview? He's like, give UCF basketball a chance. Give UCF basketball another chance. And I think that's the message I think I would give to the fans, is just give this program a chance. Give Coach Dawkins a chance. Come back. Whatever your issues were, whatever the problems were, there's no reason why this team can't draw more. Now, I'm not going to the SMU game doesn't count because the 6 o'clock tip, I mean, that's rough. That's rough. I mean, that's a lot of people are just getting out of.
Well, I mean, for crowd wise, yeah. But I mean, it's, as far as the players are concerned, I don't think that SMU is really a draw, believe it or not. I mean, I know that sounds weird to say, but they're not a marquee program that you're going to go, oh, I'm circling the calendar on that one. I think that the Memphis game on Saturday, February 4th, they're going to have the tailgate going for that, and then they're going to have the tailgate for the UConn game the following week, Saturday, February 11th. Those are your two games. Those are your two. If I'm a casual fan, I'm circling those two games, and I will have circled the USF game as the games that I want to see. But again, Cincinnati also coming in Sunday, February 26th, and they're going to want to have a big crowd for that game. Those 3 weekend games at home coming up. And one of the things, I think I said this before, but I think it bears repeating. We haven't had the signature win yet in Johnny Dawkins' first season. I guess you could argue maybe the Houston game or maybe the Temple game, but you haven't had the big win that makes everyone go, wow, UCF basketball's back, man. And and there's 3 chances at it right there.
The problem was the Temple win would have been that, because at the time Temple was an RPI in the 20s, and they had beaten Florida State, they beaten West Virginia. Like, wow, that might be the best win the basketball program's had in years. Unfortunately, Temple since then has fallen apart a little bit.
Yeah,
so
the
that
Emperor kind of had no clothes on that one.
Yeah, so it's funny that just unfortunately did not work out from that standpoint. So, but I like him, and I think he's doing the right things. He's doing the radio interviews. And I'm not just saying that because he was on Tuck and O'Neill, because I'll be honest, he's been on with Mike Bianchi, all right? So I'm not playing favorites. He's doing what he needs to do. And I think people need to just kind of get behind the program again. And I think it's been a good product. And I'll in my opinion, UCF basketball right now is the best basketball product by far in Orlando. If you have a choice to watch a Magic game or a UCF basketball game, I think you need to pick a UCF basketball game. I think you get more for your bang for your buck. I mean, I go to both. But I think they need to be pushed. And I think the community, I think at some point, as I mentioned, and I outlined the time period, I think turn their back on this program for whatever reasons. I think need to kind of give this program a chance. And that's what Taylor Young's comment still sticks with me. You mentioned February 11th, by the way. You realize that is a huge day on campus.
Oh, yeah, that's the great sports equinox right there, isn't it?
It's one of them. It's one of the big ones. You mentioned the UConn game, all right? That's a 6 o'clock tip that night. UCF's also doing their baseball fan fest that day.
That's right. That's going to be in the arena lobby that day, or in the plaza, I should say.
Correct. So you get to meet the baseball team, Greg Lovelady, the new head coach of the baseball program. So that's significant. And then softball, that's their second day of the new season, highlighting they're playing Kentucky.
Yep.
From the SEC at 3:30 approximately. So that's a heck of a day. I'm sure, and that's one of the things we're going to try and do in the spring. We're going to highlight these marquee days of, wow, you got to go to like all these events at once, because you've done that working there. You've done that where you've had to go to multiple
not just now. Yeah, people forget this. Not just it would be a day where like you wouldn't just have to go to finish up with the basketball at night, right? You would have the 2 softball games in the afternoon. You'd have basketball at night, but people would forget that you also would have like tennis in the morning. They would play like a 10 a.m. match against somebody, and I'm out there, and by then it's the cool weather is gone. It's now warm again, and I'm out there, and I'm like applying sunscreen every 30 minutes, and lugging the camera around all over campus with on a golf cart, and it was that part the shoulder pain I don't miss, having to ice up my shoulder at home at 11 o'clock at night after a day like that. But it was fun. It is fun to see sort of all those sports happening at once, and it's particularly fun when UCF wins all the time in those games. And one thing I wanted to touch back upon that you kind of mentioned, like what's the best basketball product in Orlando right now? And I do agree with you that UCF right now is the better basketball product than the Magic. And the reason why I believe that has to do with Johnny Dawkins specifically, because unlike what the Orlando Magic have going for them right now, Johnny Dawkins has established an identity for UCF basketball this year. I think that was the most important thing he had to do, is establish an identity, and part of that goes into culture. And we know Johnny's background. We talked about it many times about, being a Duke guy and coming from the Coach K family tree, that that those guys think in larger terms. They think big. They think in terms of, kind of like a Fortune 500 company, where it's about culture and buying in and establish your identity on the floor and adapt your system to your players and not the other way around. And this team has an identity this year, and that's what's fun to see. Now that you can tell right there, as we've said, they still got a lot of growing up to do. But I feel like they've grown, I feel like they've grown so much from last year to this year that it makes me excited to see how they finish this season. Are they able to finish strong? And then what happens, of course, for next year, which we'll get to next year. But what do you think about that? You see this? Do you see the same thing that I'm seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the Magic definitely have no identity right now.
Yeah, that's true. But aside from that,
I mean, that's clear. I mean, he does have an identity and a belief and the respect. And I think that's a factor. I could tell you this.
Authenticity, man. I keep coming back to that also. I'm a big believer in, are you authentic? And I think that Johnny Dawkins is, as authentic as it gets in terms of, is this guy for real? Yes. Can he get people to buy in? And I think the players say that too.
And here's my prediction on this, because UCF's been at a lot of ESPN News games this year because the expectation is low. If they finish well this year, if they make a postseason, if they have a winning year, and pretty much everybody returns, I think they're going to get a lot better TV time slots because of Johnny Dawkins and because of the team. And I think that's what you're going to see next year in basketball. I think to me that's the exciting thing. And I could tell you I was out there for the tailgating for the Houston game. I think it's a cool idea, and I think they're going to try some different stuff, and I think it's going to be fun. And the students have been out there. The Houston, they're there for the USF game was electric.
Got to give them credit. They've been out there since they got back for the spring semester.
Now, I do think the students, there's got to be a way where we teach the students all the cheers and everything like that, because I feel like I've studied them a little bit. I feel like at times they're kind of followers right now. They don't really know when to react, how to react and stuff, where, when we were in school, you had Rowdy Knights and Kirk Jerks and people like that. They kind of followed, and then they kind of led the way, and everybody else followed. And it was a good coach, bad coach, and all that stuff. So I think the students have to kind of figure all that stuff out. But otherwise, they're there. But to me, it's getting the community to support this, because it's a good arena, and there is some good basketball coming in. I mean, this is a good league, and there's some good teams coming in. So hopefully it works out. And we build. It's just building. It's just starting. We're not at the end of anything. This is just the beginning. I think that's the key, the thing to remember, regardless of what happens here in the next few weeks or the rest of the season.
Yeah, it is just the beginning. My hope is that we get back to the days of actually, that senior season in Jermaine Taylor. There were some wild games, and the environment in the arena was insane for some of those crazy games. Sure. So I hope eventually we do get back to that. I have a feeling we do, as long as we keep doing what I'm guessing that Coach Dawkins is preaching here. I think we'll eventually get there. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about women's basketball. Elo and I were both at the last game. We got a lot to talk about there. And
and I'm going to give you this tease. I'm going to give you this tease for the audience. I may have seen the best UCF women's athlete of the year. I may have seen her. I'll tell you who that is.
Okay. Oh, I'm interested to hear what you say on this one, because we still got the spring to go here. And then we'll also talk a little. We'll check in on tennis, see how they're doing, and a little volleyball and softball news to bring to you here on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Stick around. We're back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fegley.
This is Trey Strelka with the UCF Nightline Podcast, the original, the #1 rated UCF sports podcast.
You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, it's UCF_Nightline, and at www.ucfnightlinepodcast.com.
Be sure to subscribe to us as well on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
And when you get sick of listening to these guys, make sure you look us up.
Don't forget, that's the UCF Nightline Podcast. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now, back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
And welcome back. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here at the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret. And also look us up on Facebook and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn if you don't already. Leave us a rating, too, on iTunes, by the way, because that helps us out and gets us out and gets our name out there with UCF fans out there. So just like the folks on Nightline, send us a rating, let us know what you think, and also don't be afraid to ask us some questions on Twitter. If you ask us a question, we'll be happy to answer for it, because this entire time we've done this. I think this is show number 26 or 27, Eric. We've never had a listener actually ask a question, which kind of makes me sad. But hey, we're out there, and you can hit us up at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, or send us a question on Facebook as well. Just search for Black and Gold Banneret. All right, we talked about.
They can send it to. Oh, wait, they can also send it, because I've gotten questions on my individual Twitter, Eric Lopezilo. So they can.
Oh yeah.
Send out some Twitter questions and stuff like that, and we'll try to answer them as well.
Yeah, as long as they're smart questions. We don't answer any stupid questions.
Well, yeah, that's a key. Yes.
All right, so women's basketball. Let's talk. We were both at the last game.
We were both there at the last two games.
Yeah, Tuesday night against Cincinnati was the most recent one. A 64-44 UCF win. We talked about how the last men's game was physical. This game was physical for 3 good quarters. Both of these teams just went at each other, I thought. UCF fell down early, fought back, led by 1 at the half, took a 6-point lead into the fourth quarter, and then outscored Cincinnati 20-6. Aaliyah Gregory was 5 of 10 from the field, 22 points. Zy Lewis finished with a rather quiet 15, I thought. But this was Cincinnati's a pretty good team. A little bit of a change in the lineup for this game. Coach Abe started Jocelyn Massey and Toluo Makore on the front line, and started Ashley Polachek at the point over KK Wright. KK's a freshman. She's had her ups and downs this year, but Ashley got things going early, and actually it didn't look so good. And she switched KK in a little bit early, but it was just a little bit of a different spark, I thought, on the offensive end. They were just a little bit more crisp as the night went on. And UCF ends up getting the victory by 20 over this Cincinnati team, Eric. I was doing PA, but I'm interested to know from where you were saying. I mean, this is a good Cincinnati team. They were 14-6, 5-2 in the league now, Cincinnati is. UCF jumps up to 3-4 in the conference. They're now in 6th place in the American, 13-7 overall, still hurting from that early conference season kind of swoon where they lost those 4 games, including 3 in the league. But you can see them trying to hit a stride now as the season moves on. I think they're actually getting a little bit stronger physically as the season goes by. The frontline players have been doing well. Tolu's been rebounding the hell out of the ball. Jocelyn Massey, I think, has just been a real unsung hero this season for the Knights. When she's in there, she's such a great presence on the interior. And she was rebounding the ball like crazy, especially in the first half. And Fifi Endor had herself a pretty good game, too, as well, down low. So I thought that it was really encouraging to see this team kind of stomp on the opponent in the fourth quarter. What did you think?
Yeah, it was a great win, really good win. But realize that was their 13th win of the season. That's more wins than they've had all of last year, had more wins than 2 years ago, have more wins this year than they had 3 years ago. So that's impressive. And I for disclosure, I called the game for the American Digital Network.
Yep. I was on the PA mic as well.
Yeah, I called the game with Despina Barton. You can actually watch an archive of the game, by the way, if you go to the American Conference on YouTube, and it's there. I've had a chance to speak with Coach Henderson, Coach Abe, as they like to refer to in her first year. I got a chance to talk to her on a conference call Monday. I got a chance to talk to her, obviously, last night after the game on the post game and stuff. Very impressive coach. Intense, attention to detail. But boy, gets the most out of her players. I think if there's any questions, I think Danny White hit another home run higher, don't you? I mean, the guy, he's got a pretty high batting average right now. So, very impressed with her. And I think she's done a heck of a job with this team, Jeff, because if you look at this offense comes through 2 players, and that's Aaliyah Gregory and Zy Lewis, as you mentioned. They coming into last night, they count for 44% of the scoring on this offense. So they don't have a lot of offensive options beyond that. except for pounding the boards, getting extra possessions. They're +9, I believe, in rebounding, among the best in the conference in the nation. And they play hard. They're a defensive-minded team first. They're now 13-0 this year. Remember I said they have won 13 games this year. They're 13-0 when their opponents, they give up less than 60 points to their opponents. They're 0-7 when their opponents score more than 60 points. Yeah. So that tells you what the identity of this team is, which is defense, getting to the boards, putting some pressure, and they caused havoc for Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati was without their best player, Shanice Johnson, a double-doubles player, had something happen. She was at shoot-around. She had personal reasons came up, and we're not going to speculate. So she was not with the team. We hope everything works out for them. But they were shorthanded, and then they had Bianca Quisenberry, who was one of their top 12 guards, was in foul trouble that night, last night.
Yeah,
so that really resulted in Anna Owens, who was the difference maker in the first meeting when these two teams played back on January 4th. Owens had 20 points and 6 assists in the victory. Well, she was kind of a non-factor, and they defended her, and that was one of the reasons why they put in Polachek in the starting lineup, because she's very good on-ball defender.
Yeah, Owens had a bad game. She was 3 of 11 from the field.
And then the defense was a big part of that. And so I thought that was some good adjustments there, good energy and from the team after really the energy wasn't there at home against Tulsa on Saturday. And I know that's something that Coach James gets frustrated with because it's part of the building with this program. As I mentioned, they haven't won a lot in the last 3 years. None of these girls on this roster have won this much at this level. So they're kind of learning not only how to win, but then when you win, how you keep winning. That's where they're at right now in the progress, in the process, I should say. So I was very impressed with that. More specifically, I want to bring up Aaliyah Gregory.
Yeah.
Who I've gotten a chance to see. She scored 25 points, season high against Tulsa on Saturday. And then Tuesday night against Cincinnati, she was in foul trouble, played 7 minutes, and only had 2 points. And then she exploded. I think had 20 points, I believe.
22 points, 5 of 10 from the field, 12 for 12 at the line.
And I'm so impressed with her because she's never in a rush. You notice that? A lot of players rush their shots. A lot of players force things. She's always in control. She's got command, and boy, she's got a good stroke. Man, she's such an offensive weapon. She's fantastic. I think she's one of the best women's basketball players I've seen UCF had in a long time, Jeff. I don't know, maybe since Chelsea Wiley. I mean, I don't know if somebody else comes to mind in your mindset there, but
we've seen a few. Those early Coach Joy teams had a bunch of players who kind of they all kind of fit like pieces of a puzzle. Nobody was the star. Everyone kind of fit into their role, and so they won 2 conference championships. Aaliyah, what I'm impressed with her is, and Coach Abe talked about this, and we're going to give you a little bite from Coach Abe here in a second, but you can have players that just take the ball to the basket, and you can have players that shoot 3, and Aaliyah can do both of those things. But she has this excellent mid-range game, and it was on full display against Tulsa, and where she scored 25 points. That was really the only thing that UCF had going for it, was the fact that she could get into the lane, stop and pop at about 13 to 15 feet and knock it down. We saw a little bit of that as well. She reminds me very, very much, Eric, I want to see if you agree, of Richard Hamilton, particularly mid-career, where she has that, where she would take her defender to the basket and stop and pop and get that mid-range J up there, and it was so effective. I mean, it's deadly. It really is. And Coach Abe talked about that right here.
I'm just so proud of her. There's a lot of intangibles about Aaliyah that make her really, really great. And the number one is she's unselfish. I mean, she's the most unselfish person we have on our team. And but when I came in here and I first got the job and I started saying, everybody was saying Zai's our best player, but I kept saying, Aaliyah Gregory could be like a stud because she's got the height, she's got the athleticism, she's got a phenomenal pull-up jumper, which is really hard in college athletics to teach. If you don't have it, everybody shoots the 3 or goes to the basket 100 miles an hour. Nobody has a mid-range game, and Zai and Aaliyah both have it. But Aaliyah's is so good because she can elevate on it and she can finish shots. You guys don't know who Jackie Stiles is. Maybe you do. I don't know. But she had the best in college athletics. I mean, she was so good at it. And Leah's got way more height and can elevate. And so, but she's been doing that consistently. And so it's been really awesome to see her. And she's just super happy for the team.
Yeah, and I thought that she has become a real weapon in this team for this team. And also, I got to give her credit because Zy Lewis was always expected to be the scoring threat. We know how great of a shooter Zy is, and when she's on, it's Katie bar the door. Zy was 5 of 14 in this game, 15 points, including 2 of 5 from deep. But
big second quarter too. Had a couple steals that I thought sparked them a little bit when they were struggling.
And was jumping the passing lanes all throughout the game too. I'm glad you noticed that too because she was able to actually cause quite a bit of havoc in the backcourt for Cincinnati. But she's been a little banged up, and she hasn't been shooting particularly well in the last couple weeks. And Aaliyah Gregory has stepped in and done a marvelous job, I think, kind of picking up the slack for where Zy was leaving off. Aaliyah's she's a junior, so we'll have her for one more year. She's from Strawberry Crest High School outside of Tampa. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she continues to her development this year really has, and Coach Abe alluded to it in the postgame presser, has really been impressive.
She says she's her best player. She thinks she should be an all-conference player. It's hard because you got so many UConn players and all that stuff. So who knows? But she deserves some awards.
That's another thing where you just have to you got to put the UConn players off in their own little bracket out here. Kind of like when you put Hawaii, down in a little thing on a map of the United States, Hawaii and Alaska. It's like you put UConn down there, and then everyone else is over here, right?
Something to that extent, but I'll give her this award right now. And obviously there's a lot of sports to be going on, spring sports and stuff like that. If I had to vote today, and I'm sure we'll do this at the end of the year. If I had to vote for UCF Female Athlete of the Year right now, I would go Aaliyah Gregory. I'm that impressed. I was really that impressed, which is saying something because the volleyball, as you know, has a couple of players. But man, I'm impressed with her game. I mean, I think she's fun to watch. And when she plays well, there's a belief, UCF's capable of doing things. And, she's got to carry the
confidence level on the floor really pick up when she's hitting it. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm just very impressed. It's a close debate. I'm sure you have other candidates and we still have a long ways to go, but, I just was very impressed and seeing what she's capable of doing. I always really was.
Still partial to Jayla Hervey on that department, by the way. But
no, look, that's fair. I knew you were going to go with that. The reason why, though, here's what Jayla Harvey, Kia Bright. There's a debate on who's the best player on that team because I thought they were both fantastic when I saw them. And with respect to Zy Lewis, who's a great player, I think Gregory's the better overall package player. And she, and she's the junior. So, I don't know. That could be a fun debate. Look forward to that. I think those are certainly your contenders. We'll see what happens in the spring, but, let's give a nod to her. I think she's I was just very impressed with her skills, her fundamentals. And I was just very impressed with her. That was an impressive second half. Really, she took over the game, Jeff. Cincinnati had no answers for her.
By the way, did you see before the game that she and Tolu met Dwayne Wade?
I did. I heard about it when I was shooting around.
D. Wade, did the Bulls have their shoot around at the arena?
Well, here's the story. I know the story about this now. So apparently in the NBA, you're only allowed a certain amount of time. For example, like the Bulls were playing in town against the Magic that night. The Bulls are only allotted a certain amount of time at the Amway Center for their quote unquote shoot around, and they do a little shoot around and meet with the media, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's usually done around noon, something or whatever time, depending on what times they do it and stuff like that. So what happens is a lot of times, a lot of these NBA teams will go elsewhere to get some work done, whether it be doing a shoot around, maybe get some shots in, maybe do a workout and stuff. And what's happening is a lot of NBA teams are actually calling up Johnny Dawkins saying, hey, can we use your gym? Sure. And so Dwayne Wade was there with his trainer, and I think there was another player too. We didn't get an info on that, but he was there working out, getting ready for that night's game against the Magic. And from what I was told, I think there's already been like 8 teams in the NBA that have used the CFP arena and the facilities to get some work done. Because it's still a lengthy day between early that day and then going into that night game, or some teams even come in the day before, because they don't have to play until the next day.
Right.
And they don't obviously have the access to the Amway Center because the Magic, that's their practice facilities and all that. So sometimes you got to go elsewhere. But there's been a lot of NBA teams that have called up Johnny Dawkins because of the respect they have for Johnny Dawkins, and they've called him up to use the building and whatever, if it's plausible, they do it. And then
Johnny's an NBA guy,
Yes. And so again, that's where Johnny helps out. So yes. And the girls were ecstatic about it. Cause he was wrapping up right as the women's team was getting ready for, I guess, their workout and get ready for shoot around and stuff. So, that's pretty cool. So yeah, you never know who you're going to run into in the building, from time to time. So that's kind of what the story was. And, I was very happy for them. And, by the way, Wade played very well as the Bulls, in case you didn't know. So, it's not like it worked out. Whatever he did, he was working out. It worked. So, that's the story. And it shows to you the respect that people have for Johnny Dawkins. It also shows the fact that that arena, that building, and what the facilities can do for you. Because if pro players are willing to come there and get some work done, I mean, that's a pretty good recruiting pitch too, I would assume.
Yeah, it does speak well for our facilities. Segue. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about some news that came down from an administrative point of view at UCF. 2 stories came down this week. First thing I saw here was Bob Garvey, who's been a donor for UCF Athletics for a long time, just donated $1 million to the UCF Athletics Fund for the creation of, this is according to the press release from UCF, the Garvey Center for Student Athlete Nutrition, which is pending Board of Trustees approval. Says that the UCF Football Recruiting Lounge, where I've been many times. That's that building on the south end of the stadium. That has a big sort of stage in there, and it's where during the week the football players have their training table, and then we also used to still do shoot the. I don't know if they still shoot the coaches show there, but the Georgia UCF Sports Day with George O'Leary was shot in there. There was a. We would move the tables out of the way, set up 3 cameras, and there was a set there. But he's going to apparently that's going to be the Garvey Center for Student Athlete Nutrition. Nutritional headquarters for all 435 UCF student athletes. Garvey's son Kevin played for the Knights football team back in the day, got his MBA at UCF. So they're part of the UCF family. $1 million donation. So, and he's also a vice chair of the UCF Board of Trustees and a member of the Board of the Directors for UCF Athletics. So, congratulations to UCF for getting that big donation from Bob Garvey and his family. So,
wow.
And by the way, you should see, man, I wish I could have taken pictures of that one. You should see the training table, man, when these players come in and they come down. Everything's kind of laid out for them exactly how it should be. There's a ton of food that they bring in for this. And they're understandable. I mean, these kids are like, teenagers, early 20s, they're college students. I mean, you remember how much we ate when we were that age. Well, imagine if you're burning, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day if you're an athlete, So, we talk about how important nutrition is. And that to me actually kind of calls upon sort of Scott Frost, right? And the Chip Kelly sort of school of, total immersion in everything that you do. And we're going to make sure that you eat right. We're going to make sure that we work out the right way. Very scientific approach to it. So that was one thing that I wanted to bring up there. And then also, this is kind of a bigger thing here that we can riff a little bit about, was this Rise and Conquer initiative. So Danny White and the UCF athletic staff, they've been working real hard on trying to sort of, I guess, kind of relaunch the idea of making sure that everything's sort of on the right plan, kind of like a brand new master plan for the Danny White era at UCF Athletics. So they got a plan that's going to include some facility enhancements, this is according to another press release, increasing resources and attracting more fans to on-campus football games. Now, here's what's gone on. They've actually, if you're a season ticket holder for UCF football, you better check in on this because the prices of your season tickets and where you sit may have changed. They just released a whole new thing where, by the way, priority ticket season ticket renewal for current season ticket holders is March the 1st. And there's a whole, and I'm taking a look at the link right now. They kind of released a little, they're going to enhance the football stadium a little bit and kind of have like club seating on both sides now. And they had a video. They put up a YouTube video, which was really cool. That kind of goes into sort of the basics of it. But they're going to make some enhancements to the stadium. Obviously, they're going to have sort of that field level club. I thought this is a really big. If they're going to expand the Carl Black and Gold Cabana Club, which is on the opposite side of the press box. And now I thought this was good. I want to know what you think about this. They're going to put students now, Eric, behind both end zones. And I thought that was a pretty smart move because now, teams would, if you won the toss, they would defer. And if you had the choice of the end, if you took the choice of the end zone, they would have it so that in the fourth quarter, if the opponent got the choice, they would go toward the non-student section for obvious reasons. You don't want to, if you're, driving late in the game, you don't want to be going into the teeth of the student section. Now they can't make that choice anymore. So how do you think this, and in addition to the new stadium club that's coming to the west side, now that's big. Sections 108 to 112 and 209 to 211, they said they're converting 3,500 seats from bench back seating to chair back seating with armrests and all that. So they're adding up to the seating. They're expanding the cabana. They're going to have the field cabanas as well, which I think it's going to be a little tight. That's a little close to the end zone. I'm wondering how they're going to pull that off. And, of course, the new student sections at Bright House Network Stadium. And we knew that Danny White was going to be doing this kind of stuff. So far I'm pretty impressed with what they've been doing. Obviously, we talked about the baseball park expansion, the enhancements with the field house and the operations building that's going in between the field house and the Wayne Dench Center. And they're going to be doing some work to softball apparently as well. But, but hey, I mean, this is what we were looking for, right? Danny White's going to be doing this kind of stuff. We wanted to see how it would turn out, and there's going to be there has been already, and they're going to continue to kind of make the drive for a little bit more revenue. And there was a pretty clear appeal to UCF fans here about, hey guys, we want to make, we want to be at the top of the American Conference, and it's going to require, and we're asking you for a commitment. And what did you think about this whole thing? Did you check it out? What did you think?
Saw some of that. The end zone part is interesting, right? Because that other side was always kind of the emptiest part too, right?
It was.
So it wasn't like it. So right. So it wasn't like it was drawing or selling a lot in that area. So I think it's smart to add some students in that side as well. I like the young alumni deal.
That I really see. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one thing that I wish we did when I was fresh out of school. Right, you kind of get some better pricing if you're a recent graduate within the last 4 years to kind of get you in the door in terms of getting season tickets. And I'm kind of bummed. I wish if we did have something like that when we were young alumni, I didn't hear about it.
No, I don't think it happened. And I think the key is you're trying to develop the young people to stay fans of your program and stay fans when they move on from the school. Because I think there are fans, there are people that go to the school and go to the games, and then when they leave, they they don't really follow the program. So I think it's an effort to an upgrade in that. So I think it's positives, and I think, I think, and it's the thing I like. I mean, obviously a lot of the focus is on football and the tickets and all that. But there's other sports that are also being helped. And I think that's the good thing. It's, Danny White's been very consistent in his message since he got here, which is to be a top 25 program in all sports. And he's backing that up by trying to give all the sports the resources they need, Jeff. And that's he's backing up the talk, and that's all you could say and really ask of him.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the fact that he's actually been, I think, as transparent as any UCF AD I think we've ever had in terms of, this is my direct appeal to you. And it's a really service-oriented sort of appeal, and that I really appreciate. So it should be fun. I mean, I'm hoping that the fans respond to this because, like we've talked about before, UCF gets a lot of its athletic budget from student fees. Okay, now we paid that when we were students. Anyone listening who was a student, you paid that. It was per credit hour. I think UCF was among the highest, may have been the highest in the country in terms of FBS, in terms of the athletic fee per credit hour, which they charge. And as a result, the students get free admission, all that kind of stuff. But that's it's a considerable amount of money. And as the educational landscape changes, that was pretty beneficial for UCF, when we were growing from a campus that had 40,000 to 60,000. But now you're kind of hitting that plateau, right? And that if you raise the athletic fee nowadays, I think, students are a lot more in tune with what's going on. They're not going to be happy if all of a sudden they find out that their tuition went up again to go to sports. Particularly, students who may not be all that interested in sports, which, oh, by the way, unfortunately, we do have plenty of students that just don't care about athletics, which every school has. Okay, fine.
Well, look,
I was fine paying, paying the athletic fee, but,
right.
I kind of understand people who weren't. But,
well, let's be honest about this. Our sports fans, we're kind of in the bubble. I mean, really, if you think about it, the majority of the country is really not a sports fan, really, if you think about it. I mean, there may be casual
just
fans.
Just ask the NFL.
Right. I mean, look at the NFL, right? Like, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. We're going to be talking about how there's 100 million viewers and they're going to be watching. And yet, when you see the television ratings, while they're monster numbers, I think it only is going to come out to 40% of the country that has television on the game and 50%. And so believe it or not, there's people that don't watch sports and they don't really care who wins. I mean, even if you follow the voting process and voting in the political side of things with the NFL and San Diego turning down a stadium. And I remember in Orlando when they had to revamp the Florida Citrus Sports, that was in the stadium there. That was a big topic.
That was pretty controversial. Yeah. Well, then also don't forget the soccer stadium.
The soccer stadium was a huge controversial
that whole
deal.
Thing went down, and finally, in credit to the Orlando City, they decided, you know what, we'll foot the bill ourselves.
Right,
but you're
just
right
like, by the way, I mean, right, because I mean, look, they built the Dr. Phillips Performance Center. That was, is that worth it or not worth it? Part of the whole entertainment. So there's always a lot of different things. So in college, and I've always said this because UCF fans get always upset because we get, oh, geez, well, this guy goes to school there, but he's only a fan of so-and-so, and he's a fan of this school. And look, a lot of people don't go to the school for sports. As much as we like to think they do, they really don't. They go for the education, they go for the degree, but they probably have already been following a school team. A lot of people probably went to UCF and have been following a Florida State or been following a Florida or been following a Miami or whoever. And so that's kind of where, and I think what Danny White is shooting for, to my point, is you're trying to invest in the young alumni and convert them and maintain their interest in the program. And that's the effort that he's trying to accomplish from that standpoint, because he knows there's a lot of demand. And to your point, you can't depend on regular students that maybe don't care about, athletic fees and stuff like that. So you have to come up with revenues elsewhere and generate interest elsewhere and build your fan base and to be invested in it. Instead of, I'll just tailgate, but maybe I'll check out the game or not. And UCF is in that battle, and it's, I applaud them for the efforts that they're doing. They're trying to pull off here.
Interesting data that they put on this website. You go to WeRiseAndConquer.com. And I just want to touch upon this. UCF is in the middle of the pack in the American in terms of their yearly budget. These are among the public universities in the American. Navy, by the way, excluded in this case. But UCF is in the middle of the pack in terms of their yearly budget, $47.6 million, according to USA Today. I'll give you a guess. Now, UCF is fourth. What are the three top, and how much more do you think the top team has?
Far as
In a yearly athletic budget among public universities in the American.
wow.
I think you'll get
boy.
the team, but I think you'll be surprised at how much more.
All right, I will throw out. Let me start with. Oh boy, it's gonna be. Let me start with Houston. I'm just curious. Where are they ranked?
They're 2 spots behind UCF.
Woo! Okay.
They're
very good.
45.4 million. UCF's at 47.6.
East Carolina. Where are they at?
East Carolina's third, just ahead of UCF at 49.3 million.
Where's Memphis?
3 spots behind UCF, 43.2
Really?
million. Yeah.
All right.
Now they have all their eggs are in one basket with basketball there.
All right, Connecticut.
UConn's first.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's second, by the way. So ahead of UCF right now. It mentioned East Carolina, 49 million. Cincinnati's at 51.7 million. That's their yearly budget. UConn's yearly budget, $72 million.
Gotta love that basketball. Who says basketball doesn't matter?
Well, both basketballs. See, that's the thing.
Right.
I mean, they're pulling in, and not to mention, they do have football at UConn. It's not overly great, but they're not exactly a sinking ship, and they pull in for both basketballs. I mean, they pull.
And
in
I can tell you, having visited there last year, I mean, that's a basketball school first.
Oh yeah.
By far. And, Cincinnati's fascinating because they've got a great basketball program themselves. Football's been pretty good. You could debate which one's the more popular one in Cincinnati. I mean, Bearcats fans would probably know better, obviously. East Carolina's obviously built towards the football. They got a beautiful football stadium there.
And I got an interesting factoid for you on ECU in a second, but go ahead.
And I give credit to Terry Holland, who used to be the athletic director at East Carolina, and I knew him. And this was back when East Carolina and UCF were in Conference USA. And I remember I visited Greenville in 2011 for there was at the time the Conference USA softball tournament. I hung out with Mr. Holland. And that was around the time where they were kind of building all these facilities for all their sports. The basketball arena was going up. They just built the new softball stadium. They were revamping the baseball stadium, toward the football stadium. And their goal, of course, at the time, as silly as it sounds maybe to some, their goal was to get to the Big East, just like everybody else was back then, right? So they generated a lot of the revenues, and they built up all these facilities, which are beautiful up there. And, obviously they've jacked it up in the revenues. No longer there, I know, but that's kind of what jumps out to me.
All right, so here's another thing that they have. And you can get all this, again, WeRiseandConquer.com. And I thought this was interesting, too. They compared all the teams in the American in terms of what they call the annual fund. All right, so what is the annual fund? Well, they define the annual fund as seat and parking-based revenue. Does not include major gift donations. And this is based on fiscal year 2014-2015. UCF has 4,400 annual fund donors that as of the school year that ended in 2015 are just short of $5 million in terms of the annual fund. Now, which school has that's sixth best in the American. I'll give you one guess as to which school, and I already hinted it to you, has the largest annual fund. And that is that's the most money from seat and parking-based revenue.
What, Connecticut?
No. They're second.
Oh, Cincinnati.
East Carolina.
Oh, really?
Yes. They're almost at $8 million a year in terms of their annual fund from annual revenue from parking and ticket sales. Now, what I find about this is really interesting is they also list the number of annual fund donors. That's the number of people that are basically, doing things like buying season tickets and parking purchases.
Sure.
Donations based on season ticket and parking purchases. UCF has actually the second largest number of annual fund donors at 4,400. But the difference is East Carolina has the most. You know how many they have? This is unbelievable.
How many?
16,828 annual fund donors, almost 4 times as many as UCF. And UCF is third highest behind Cincinnati, who has 4,472, which is 72 more than UCF. Can you believe East Carolina? So what are they doing at East Carolina in order to get a lot of those people on board? It kind of reminded me of when I was covering Clemson. If you go to Clemson, right, you go to a Clemson game up in Clemson, South Carolina, and you'll see a bunch of students and people running around wearing these orange shirts that say IPTAY, I-P-T-A-Y. Okay? IPTAY stands for I Pay 10 a year. Now, what is it? Now, what is that? Well, back in the story was related to me by a guy named Freeman Martin, who used to be a salesman at the TV station that I worked at in Toccoa, Georgia, and was associated with the Clemson program for a long time. He was even their football PA guy for a long time, back when Danny Ford was the head coach.
Right.
And Freeman told me, he said, I asked him, what is IPTAY? And he says, well, IPTAY means I pay 10 a year. I said, what is that? He said, well, back in the day during the Depression, when Clemson was, really, really struggling. It was in a poor part of upstate South Carolina, obviously. And they were, Clemson was pretty good at football in the South back in the day, around the time, Newt Rockne up at Notre Dame and all that, and during the 30s and heading into World War II. But they were really struggling financially. So what the folks at Clemson did, who were in charge of athletics, they made a direct appeal to everyone and anyone who would listen: alumni, faculty, current students, people around the area, anyone around. They say, listen, pledge to us $10 a year. That's all you got to do, and we'll accept $10 of anything, not just $10. We'll accept, if you're an apple farmer, we'll accept $10 worth of apples and give them to our student athletes. $10 worth of services for this and that. And it caught on, and it worked. And everyone at Clemson basically, and when you think about it, it's kind of like the original micro donation, right? Like, what's the website where people go and do that kind of thing, like Indiegogo or something like that, right? And that sounds to me like what the ECU. I'll have to get more details on it. And if you're an ECU fan out there and listening, let me, fire off a message to us on Twitter. Let us know. But 16, almost 17,000 donors, and that was back in 2015. It's probably over 17,000 now. Pulling in under $8 million. I'm trying to do the math here real quick, but that's relatively low compared to other schools. Donation amount per annual fund donor. So I think that's, maybe there's a way that UCF can leverage that in terms of getting micro donations. I mean, shoot, we're pumping out 15,000 graduates a year. So yeah, that would be and their goal is to get up over the $8 million mark, I would imagine, because that's the part that's shaded on the graph here. So they want to be at the top of the American, and maybe the micro donation thing could be a possible way to go. What do you think?
Could be. I'm sure Danny White and they've done their research, and that remains to be seen. It's a possibility, but that's a credit to East Carolina. By the way, you've depressed me. I made a donation this week, thinking I was, pretty good donation this week to UCF and softball program, among other things. And now I feel like, man, all these zeros. I feel like a chump.
We got to step it up.
I guess I do. But no, you're right. I mean, that's obviously.
And this was.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was really interesting too. The last graph that they had, and you got to check this out. They actually compared UCF to Kansas State in the Big 12.
Oh no, they don't. Wow.
Yes. Okay.
And
they broke it down like this: conference NCAA student and state fees, UCF and Kansas State about $30 million a year. Sponsoring, licensing, concessions, also the same. Other revenue about the same. Where UCF falls short is in, guess what? Ticket revenue and donations and parking.
Yep.
And that's what Danny White and everyone is going. They're trying to close that gap to keep up with other as Danny White calls them, Power 6 programs in ticket revenue and donations. K-State makes $72.7 million in revenue per year. UCF makes about $47.7, and the gap is in ticket revenue and donations and parking. So they're making a big drive in terms of getting people to buy season tickets and make donations. And obviously, well, if you're going to get your tickets, you got to get your parking. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out in the next, 3 to 5 years.
Stay tuned, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple things to catch up on. Tennis, by the way. We mentioned tennis. They got women's tennis has 2 weekend matches. Saturday against at Stetson in DeLand, and then Sunday back at the USTA National Campus. They're almost a 2-week break, so they didn't play this week. And men's tennis, by the way, right now standing at 3-1. Women's at 2-1. And they have their next match also Sunday against Bethune-Cookman. And then they have a long time, more than 2 weeks off until they play Tennessee Tech again on February 17th. So USTA National Campus, busy weekend. If you can, get down there for that. So that should be a lot of fun. And some volleyball news real quick we wanted to mention. Erin Olson is the latest addition to the UCF volleyball team. She transfers over from Bradley. She's a freshman setter. And native of Cary, Illinois. She had 1 season at Bradley where she was recruited by UCF, then Bradley head coach, and now UCF associate head coach Jenny Maurer. Led Bradley with in assists with 582 last year, also 194 digs. Does exactly what you want a setter to do, and she should be able to help out UCF, I think, in terms of what Todd wants to do with the offense here. So maybe he might even run two setters. Who knows? But welcome to the roster, Erin Olson. So she'll be on the floor for UCF in the fall for UCF volleyball. And then you've got some softball news, don't you, Eric?
I did. The American Conference came out with their preseason poll. Tulsa, who's the defending conference tournament champions from last year, was the preseason pick, number 1. South Florida, which was the regular season champion last year, was picked number 2. UCF was picked 3rd. Houston was 4th.
Bulletin board material.
Well, look, it's fair. In my opinion, it's fair. Look, I mean, the big questions, and we're going to get into this now in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the season. UCF's got a very young team. They got 7 freshmen, but in particular, 3 freshmen in the pitching staff to go with the senior Manami Calixto. And look, the number one question everybody's going to ask is, who do you replace Shelby Turnier? An All-American, the most decorated pitcher in UCF softball history. That's going to be the big question. Not only that, you lose another senior pitcher in Jamie Uvari, who was their number 2 last year, was kind of a closer and can start. So that's the big question is you got young pitching. I know they're, Aaliyah White to name to keep in mind, a kid from Tampa, Cambridge, freshman, but again, the young staff, they're going to have some growing pains. I will say that, I've been talking to people over there. This is the most tightly grouped team that they've had there. The chemistry is good. The team is bonding very well. And I think they're going to swing the bat very well. So I feel pretty good about that, but it's going to be, can this inexperienced pitching, I should say, how quickly can it grow? And that's going to be the big factor there. And I think that's why they were picked 3rd, and rightfully so. I think USF obviously has a similar question because their senior pitcher, Erica Nunn, which is a pitcher of the year last year, she graduated. Who replaces her there? Tulsa returns the most experienced pitching to go along with their balanced offense. So I think it's fair that they're the number 1 pick in the preseason. But look, UCF's got certainly a young staff, and they're going to learn quick because they got a tough schedule. Opening weekend, we mentioned this earlier. They open the season the weekend of February 10th. Kentucky will be among the teams in that tournament that UCF will host alongside Pittsburgh and then some. And then I know Georgia's coming later in the year. So it's a tough schedule. They go to Mary Nutter for a tournament. So it's, that's going to be the big question, Jeff, is, that pitching staff, can it grow? How quickly can it grow? Well, I think we'll determine whether the UCF can contend for the conference title or maybe go through some growing pains as they learn on the job.
February 10th is the opener against Florida A&M. Boy, that's right around the corner all of a sudden.
Tell me about it.
Oh, man.
Tell me about it.
Where does this year going already? All right, anyway. All right.
That's
so as we wrap up here, what do you got on tap this week, Eric?
Wow, for a change, I actually get to slow down a little bit, just producing Tuck and O'Neill.
It's the calm before the storm when softball starts on February 10th.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, I'm getting preparation for the softball season. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of stuff actually on In the Circle on the WordPress there on the site. If you follow my Twitter, it's also on In the Circle SB. I'm doing a lot of softball preview content stuff, but yeah, I'm getting again, as I mentioned, UCF's got a young team. I got to learn a new roster, so I was over at practice recently. And spend some time there and get to meet the new players and stuff and learn about the new players, I should say. So, yeah, you're right. Actually, I mean, you joke, but that's true. Part of it is I'm getting now in preparation for the season when my first game will be that day, Friday, the February 10th opener. Can you believe it? I've been doing this since 2007.
Man, oh, man, 2007. So that was the year.
How many different cities? Think about this. How many different cities did you work at since 2007?
Well, 2007, I was in Toccoa at the time.
Yeah.
And so from there, but right before I graduated from Syracuse in the summer of 2006. So I was in my first year in Toccoa, Georgia at that time. Then I came back to Orlando actually the following summer, so 2008. But yeah, I mean, think about going back to when we were students and we were doing games down at the old softball field that got, that's now an apartment building, but or a dorm building. But I mean, we used to do those games on tape delay, and we've been there since we started the program back in the fall of 2002, or excuse me, the spring of 2002 . So
yeah, you guys were pretty much there. Started the whole thing.
Latched on. I think it was myself and guys like Matt Dunaway at least were there, and started out there, and Jimmy Skiles actually used to do some softball for us back in the day. He was marketing now at UCF. It's fun seeing folks that we're still there, and some things don't change, and one of them is you, Eric Lopez.
Evidently, they haven't gotten rid of me yet. They have to bug Coach about that, but yeah, 10th year.
Don't bug Coach about that, for crying out loud. We want you to stick around.
Well, you're going to be involved more this year. You're going to be doing PA.
I'm going to be doing some PA for. Gina Catalano called me up. We're going to be doing some PA for softball this year, so that's kind of fun. Got a little bit more basketball to do, and then it's softball time. I've got some big games coming up that I'm going to be on the mic for. So I want to thank Gina for and everybody at UCF Marketing for at least keeping my number in their Rolodex and pulling it out when they need somebody to not sound like in spite of everybody else. For some reason they call me. I don't know why, but I want to thank them for that. But yeah, so it should be fun. I got actually, we might be a little bit late with next week's show, just giving you a heads up, because Wednesday night, we usually record on Wednesday nights and we put this up on Thursday, but next Wednesday night I will be in Tampa doing the American Digital Network women's basketball game. Cincinnati, who played us, we talked about that early in the show, they're coming down to Tampa. They will play USF, and I will be on the mic for that game doing analysis for the American Digital Network. And I want to thank Scott Railing for having me on board for that. That's always fun. That was a great crew that those guys have. I did the baseball with them at the tournament last year, and it was a blast. Totally awesome crew that they have doing those games. I'm looking forward to doing that game in the Sun Dome. So it should be fun.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I had a chance to work that for the UCF Cincinnati game, so you get to work the USF Cincinnati game.
Right.
So that's going to be fun. You'll have some fun with that, and should be fun. But yeah, we'll make the arrangements there. Of course, next week's big though. It's funny, you're working on National Signing Day.
Oh God, help us all! Woo! National Signing Day. Oh man. So we're gonna have to find.
I think
somebody.
that's why you scheduled this. I think that's why you scheduled the women's basketball game. You knew that if we had to do the show next Wednesday night, we're right up on the day of the National Signing Day. I think you want to at least give yourself an extra 24 hours to decompress.
Wednesday, February 1st. Yeah, I hate National Signing Day so much. I really do. But hopefully we'll have somebody on to actually fill us in on what the important stuff is. And I can stop paying attention to student athletes who are committed, which is the wrong word because you're never actually committed until you actually put your name on that piece of paper. But oh God in heaven, it's National Signing Day, Wednesday, February 1st. So stick around for that. We'll have some news on that as well. So Eric, where can folks follow you?
Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. That's the best place to find me.
And you can find me at Jeff_Sharon. Follow us at UCF_Banneret. Also on Facebook, Black and Gold Banneret, and blackandgoldbanneret.com as well. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and tune in. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes as well. So for Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thanks for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.